Welcome back to the Tim Danahey Show here at Danahey.com. And as regular listeners know, this show avoids discussion about politics while preferring to focus a light on issues. But yesterday was the national midterm elections, and we're not going to hide our head in the sand. And so today the issue is America and what the voters told us in the election results. And to help us make sense of it all is radio show host, political blogger, author, and one of only 3 people in the world to be recognized by the Tim Danahey Show as Dude, our highest honor, and we have Egberto Willies. Egberto, welcome to the Tim Danahey Show.
It's my pleasure, Tim. It's my pleasure. How are you doing today?
I am doing well, and we say well. You know, I mean, you and I both have our political inclinations, Egberto, but maybe not so well. One hates to see such a one-sided result in an election. And what's your take on this thing?
Well, I am glad that the president, in his interview that he did a few minutes ago, stressed one important thing for Americans to know, because now that Republicans have taken over the Senate, taken over several state houses, they are under the assumption, the population at large is under the assumption that that is the will of America. We have to come to the realization that that is the vote of 30% of Americans, or somewhere in that vicinity. So while it is true that that is the results of the voting, what we should be working on is participation in the democracy, because there were a lot of reasons why we only had 30% or 30% of the vote and not a more representative sample of the entire U.S. population. And as such, the results do not reflect, or does not reflect the real inklings of the population at large.
Well, you know, you picked up on the same factor that I did. You know, I believe President Obama said 2/3 of the people did not vote, and
right.
You take a look at this, and it really plays well into the hands of parties and people that are influenced by money more so than votes. And perhaps this should be one of the priorities that, Americans should start, today, now, everywhere. And that is to encourage the steps to increase participation. Egberto, there's simple things, aren't there? I mean, I can't even understand why we don't even have a national holiday for voting.
Right, there are a lot of things, but sometimes I even wonder if the national holiday would do the thing. I think right now I am more specifically upset at the Democratic Party, not in any real negative way, in just their inability to articulate a direction, their timidity in articulating a true progressive populist agenda, which is what the other 2/3 of America likely wants. The reality is the people that come out and vote just for the sake of voting for a particular party are generally ideologues. Now, people need to know that you are going to make a material difference in their lives. Those are the working people of America. Those are the people that will make that effort to go out to vote if they feel they're going to get a result. But if they don't feel that their voting really matters, why burn the gas? Why spend the extra money? Why get the babysitter to go out to vote if you don't believe your vote matters? And I don't think we articulated a message. When I say we, I'm talking about, in this case, Democrats articulated a message that made it an existential reason for these guys to go out there and vote. And it really was. It really was, because in a state like Texas, where we now are continue to have full Republican dominance, it means that the million people without health care will remain without health care. It means that a certain percentage of them will die because of the number of people that came out to vote in Texas, and that can be replicated all throughout the country.
Well, you're in Texas. I'm in Colorado, and in Colorado, our senator of 8 years, I believe, Mark Udall,
right?
He lost to Cory Gardner, and Cory Gardner is a very, very conservative member of the House of Representatives, who, frankly, his voting record and his history is far to the right on a number of women's issues, trade issues, and so forth. But he ran to the left of Mark Udall and said, he was willing, he supported all these things that were easy to address, but were not addressed. But Udall's campaign, Egberto, he only focused on women's issues, which are important. But Udall has really an excellent record with Ron Wyden of Oregon to stand up for your right to privacy, and that wasn't mentioned. There's a number of issues, specific issues, that Udall and other candidates across the country could have run. However, they seem to be running for the money and not running for the people. Would you perceive that?
Right. Absolutely. I followed Udall for some time, and it was amazing when I actually saw Gardner in front of windmills on a farm. In other words, he looked like the candidate supporting green energy. He looked like the candidate supporting a strong economy. Udall looks like a candidate, the type of candidate that we looked at Republicans as before, the guy that had one social issue that they kept on harping on. It's still the economy. It's still about trying to tell people that I will make life better for you. When, first of all, I think the Denver Post, was incorrect in their in validating Gardner, but unfortunately, there's not much that Udall gave them to work with other than his history. And in this short-term type of environment that we have, who reads history anymore? It's a sad state that, it's all about what are you saying today, not what have you done or what's your record. Otherwise, none of these guys would have been elected.
And just parenthetically, the Denver Post and the Colorado Springs Gazette are both owned by hedge funds, so it's not like perhaps they are the voice of the people. But,
right.
And looking at the Republican campaigns, and there is still the primary issue, and we'll elaborate on it in a little bit, but there's still the primary issue is that we still don't know what Republicans want to do. They ran on what they were against, and they ran on what they wanted to undo, but does anybody in America know what they want to do? I don't.
I'm going to take an exception and say, and this is kind of facetious, yes, I know what they want to do. Nothing. Remember, this is an anti-government party. So for them, a successful government is a government that does nothing. A successful government is a government that tells its people, lift yourself up by your bootstraps. Supposedly, we will create this mythical free market that will be there for you, and you can do whatever. If you want to be successful in that free market, it's there for you. Of course, if you're a corporation, you do need the socialization of government. So, that is what, if you take a look at the first things that when McConnell gave his speech today, what he wanted to do, he wanted to repatriate the trillions of dollars that corporations have overseas. He wants to repatriate them tax-free or at a low tax rate. What are we going to get out of that for the American people? We've used the American military to ensure that those corporations that are here in the United States are protected. They've used our intelligence resources. They've used all the resources of America, and on their profits, what they want to do is bring that back into the country without paying any taxes on it. In other words, they want to live on our dole. Is that not? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I look at it, Egberto. We did allow them to repatriate once with the promises that it would create jobs and stimulate the economy, but the money was not used for that purpose.
Of course.
It's one of those things that fool me as George Bush kind of fumbled over, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on everybody, or however George Bush put it. But, we've done it, been there, done that, and it didn't produce. And so to play this game again, how many times must the American people be cheated out of their belief that current tax laws benefit them in the long run, as long as the taxes are not being reinvested in them? But I tell you what, let's do this, Egberto. Let's break for a quick commercial, and when we come back, let's talk about what the Republicans are going to have to do now. Does that sound like a plan to you?
Excellent.
Okay, we're talking with Egberto Willies, and you need to find out more about this guy. It's egbertowillies.com, but you can make your life easier. We have a direct link from our website at Danahey.com, and as I said, he's only one of 3 people in the world to be recognized as dude, and I don't know what higher honors we can accord to the man. So you're listening to him here on the Tim Danahey Show. We'll be right back. You preserve a nation one community at a time, with shared knowledge and an informed electorate, with many voices speaking with civility and integrity. And we will preserve our nation when we participate, we learn, we discuss, we vote. We are the Coffee Party USA. Join us today. CoffeePartyUSA.com. Teddy Roosevelt said, of all forms of tyranny, the least attractive and the most vulgar is the tyranny of mere wealth. This is why antitrust law and competition is essential to America's economic health. This is why the Organization for Competitive Markets works to reclaim competition for farmers, ranchers, and rural communities across America. We believe our duty is to advocate a just role for government in the agricultural economy, an enforcer of rules necessary for markets that are fair, honest, and accessible. The Organization for Competitive Markets. Learn more at competitivemarkets.com. All right, welcome back to the Tim Danahey Show here at Danahey.com, and we're talking with Egberto Willies of egbertowillies.com, and we have a direct link to his website. That it's a permanent direct link that we keep on the Danahey.com website, so you can look him up anytime, and his postings are posted daily on our website. It's just... the man is a good voice for America, and we're proud to be associated with him. Egberto, we talked about some of the president's comments. We talked about the election results, and now one would suppose that the Republicans actually have to do something. What course of action do you think they need to take, and do you have confidence that they would take that course?
I would, in the past, I would agree with what all the pundits are saying, that now that they're the governing party in Congress, that they have to show results and show that they're able to govern. I think history teaches us otherwise. I think history has taught us that Mitch McConnell is a genius, a political genius. I think history has taught us that because Republicans are masters at, they're the real masters of misinformation that seems like reality, that we should not expect them to accomplish or do anything of substance. I mean, if they are to accomplish anything, it will be things for a corporate base. And that would require the president to abandon his progressive model to do that. So my gut feeling is that there will be nothing accomplished, that there will, and as much as the president talks, let's give an example. The president talks about trade in his news conference. I have no desire for the type of trade the president is talking about, because he's talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. I want no part of that. The American worker needs no part of that. It's just a matter. That is just a matter of leveraging the American worker, which will devalue his wages even further. When he talks about the other things he would like to work with, the repatriation of money, that is, as you said before, Tim, that has proven to be nothing but a pie in the sky for the average American worker. It has failed. Now, the things that we would want, infrastructure spending to rebuild, or dilapidated freeway system, or dilapidated Amtrak and all these other infrastructure, airports. Our airports look like it's been built since the 1960s. If we really wanted to fix those things could have been done already, because infrastructure is infrastructure. But that has never been done. The Republicans have wanted to exact a price to get these things done. So my theory, or my belief, is that nothing will get done, and they will successfully be able to blame the president for it not being done, and the Democrats, to true to form, will attempt to force the president to do quite a few of these things, and if we're lucky, he'll say no, and unless Democrats start to get signs and marketing methods, we will be right where we're talking about. And anybody who thinks that automatically, because in 2016 we will have a presidential electorate that looks different than the midterms, need to remember a guy named Reagan.
I understand completely, but looking at the Republicans, I mean, is there going to be a show where we can watch them disagree amongst themselves? They can continue their reluctance in the House to vote on things, to avoid having a record on positions. They're going to have to introduce bills. Is this? They're going to have to stay in session. I mean, this House of Representatives stayed in session less than any other.
Right.
I mean, is this something where we sit back and watch them fall on their own swords?
Oh no, I think they're going to pass a lot of bills. Actually, I think this Congress is going to be a very productive Congress. And write this down. Maybe you'll look at me and say, "Well, what were you thinking of later on?" But my gut feeling is that that the current Congress is so unproductive that they're going to overcompensate in the next Congress and pass a lot of laws. Remember, they can, because all Boehner and McConnell just need to get together and say, "Hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that." It doesn't matter whether the president is going to sign it or not. That's not going to result in how productive the Congress was or not. So I can actually guarantee you that they will come out with bills after bills after bills, and in fact, that is one of their modus operandi, as they've stated. They will be sending a lot of bills to the president.
But can they pass bills amongst themselves, even considering how there's the Tea Party faction and there is the corporate faction of the Republican Party, which you try it, but can they agree amongst themselves as to what bill to pass?
Well, I think they can agree on quite a few bills. I mean, they're not going to agree on immigration. Some want immigration, some don't. Some want to not raise the debt ceiling, some do. There are a lot of those far right-wing crazies out there, but they share. Here's the thing that a lot of people. Last night I heard a lot of pundits on TV stating how great McConnell and the establishment Republicans were, because this time around they were able to keep out the crazies. They were able to keep out the Tea Party folk. The most important thing that these pundits failed to mention, I don't know if they did that on purpose or not, was that the reason they were able to keep out the Tea Party folks is because they have become the Tea Party. The Republican Party is indistinguishable from the Tea Party. You can look at our Texas delegation is the microcosm of what has happened in America. We have Greg Abbott as the governor now, Dan Patrick as the lieutenant governor, Paxton as the attorney general, and we have forgot the name of the guy who is now our comptroller. A complete Tea Party slate, never advertised as Tea Party, but all members of the Tea Party. And the same can be said for McConnell and all the others. They've become the Tea Party, and in becoming the Tea Party, there's no distinction. So they have more in agreement than disagreement. Some of them are still way to the right, but for those things, they simply won't bring a bill up. They'll bring bills up for most of the other issues that they can agree on.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this, Egberto. Let's go to another commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about what the Democrats should do over the next couple of years. Does that sound good to you?
Actually, that would be excellent. I like the idea of saying what we can do as opposed to what we should. That's great.
Okay, let's approach that. We're talking with the wonderful Egberto Willies, egbertowillies.com. We have a direct link to his, a direct and permanent link to his website from ours at danahey.com. And we'll be right back after this commercial. We, the people of the United States of America, reject the U.S. Supreme Court Citizens United ruling and other related cases and move to amend our Constitution to firmly establish that money is not speech and that human beings, not corporations, are persons entitled to constitutional rights. Go to movetoamend.org. Add your voice to the 350,000 people who say, enough. This is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Welcome to this episode of Danahey.com's American History Minute, a one-minute story about little-known events. And here's today's story. In 1863 at Gettysburg, Joshua Chamberlain and the 20th Maine Infantry were ordered to hold the southern end of the Union line. If he failed, the Confederate Army would collapse the Union line and encircle the North. Gettysburg would be lost. The battle was furious and bloody. Chamberlain was malarial and wounded in both legs, but he led his men on the front line until his men ran out of ammunition and defeat was imminent. Chamberlain simply said, "Bayonet," and his word spread down the line. So, without bullets, Chamberlain and the inspired men charged the surprised Confederates and held the Union Army's southern flank. As a result of Chamberlain's courage throughout the Civil War, Ulysses Grant selected Chamberlain to accept the flag of surrender from Robert E. Lee at Appomattox. Upon receiving the flag, Chamberlain's men did not yell, cheer, or shout at the defeated Confederates. Chamberlain and his men silently snapped to attention and saluted. They saluted courageous fellow Americans. The world learned that America would, once again, stand together. This story has been provided by the Tim Danahey Show. Please like us on Facebook at Tim Danahey Show and follow us on Twitter at hashtag Tim Danahey Show. And thank you for listening at Danahey.com. All right, welcome back to the Tim Danahey Show here at Danahey.com, and it's our privilege to be talking with Egberto Willies, who has his own radio show. He's out of Texas. He's a political blogger. He's an author. He's just a man amongst boys, just really a wonderful person with whom to associate. And we've been talking about the results of the elections and the follow-ups, and we talked about what the Republicans may do. We've analyzed the elections, but now let's take a look at the wounded. You know, the Democrats. Obviously, they took a thumping, and they have to maintain their viability and as a political party and move forward. But the question is now, as they look inwardly, what should they do? And Egberto, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to say something that I said on the Community Journal today on KPFT-FM 90.1, and that was, I think that it is time for the Republicans. The Tea Party gave the Republicans new life. Not the kind of life that we like, but it gave them new life. I would love to see groups like the Green Party, some of the socialist parties, and all these guys get together, form a faction, and infiltrate the Democratic Party. I actually thought Occupy would be that animal that got it done, because what we need is to break. If you take a distribution curve, you will see that the bulk of the Democrats and the bulk of the Republicans sort of fall somewhere within a range of the bell curve, which is nothing but a corporate party, one a little bit left of center, one a little bit right of center. And those guys really are not working in the interest of the American middle class. My thing is the American middle class gets help as you move further left. That's not conjecture. That is just when you look at policy. The policy of the left is to assist. The policy of the right is generally to do more and more on your own. By the way, I'm not trying to get rid of the right. I think having a right is always necessary to provide some sort of a balance to ensure that the left doesn't, kind of go unfettered, if you will. So I have no problem with several two-party system, a civil party system at all. But I think it is time now. We've removed. We've completely gone way out of balance, and we need to be leftward balanced. So I would bring these guys in, or not bring these guys in. A party doesn't control itself. We control the parties. I think it is time for all these other groups to work within a party structure, not asking to be a part of, but becoming a part of and taking over. And then what do? Immediately we start to adopt, we immediately start preaching real middle-class centric policies. Let's give a good example here. Right now, the president did a great job in articulating what has been accomplished thus far. And by the way, I am not in 100% agreement with the president as far as how I think a lot more could have been accomplished, but I do realize the headwinds that he had. That said, the economy is better, the stock market is at record highs, unemployment is down. All those things are realities. People can get fairly affordable health care, and they don't have to worry about pre-existing conditions or all those things. Those things are realities. Those things are factual right now. They can be better. And not only can they be better, but we have to ensure that people start talking about that. I don't know if you watch your email box, Tim, and notice that every day you may get 10, 15 pieces of emails, right-wing email. How did they get your address? They are carpet bombing Americans throughout the country with misinformation, and eventually that misinformation becomes their realities. We need to have groups like yourself, myself, other folks with their blogs, their radio shows, and all of that, doing the same thing, 24/7, every day of the week, different people doing things to engage the body politic. Because right now, we only engage them 3 months before the election. Otherwise, we stay insular within our activist communities and don't really get out there. We need to be carpet bombing folks with information, encouraging them to join the fray so that they are just as fired up in the midterms like the Tea Party folk who voted in this last midterm. These guys are fired up. They're not fired up because of what they just heard over the last 2 or 3 months. They're fired up because of what they're hearing ad nauseum on Fox News, what they're hearing ad nauseum on Rush Limbaugh, what they're hearing ad nauseum through the chain emails that they get. We need to learn those things that they've taught us. I've learned, and that's the kind of stuff that I am going to be moving my blog towards doing. I'm going to be moving my mailing list to start engaging those kinds of people and more people, trying to get them involved. We'll be trying all those things. And I think it is time for us to, and a lot of times we are rather elitist. We are on a high horse. That's a problem with liberals a lot of times, When, that's why the elitist mantra can be used against us, because sometimes we just don't know to just get down there and be with the people and have respect for the people and engage the people.
Well, I don't know where I saw this, but if you were to make a 4-box square, if you know what I mean, a square with a crosshair in the middle of it, to have 4 equal sides, and the axes, Egberto, to be let's say money issues or national attitudes, that kind of thing, and using the left and right as our metric. And assigning a political party. And I'm sorry to be so vague on this, but I know you can follow this. But you take a look at it, and who fits closest to the middle of the Americans' attitudes? And it's the Green Party. And that's amazing. I mean, granted, it's a little bit off-center. No party was perfect. But the closest one to the American attitude was the Green Party. But yet they tend to be extremely discredited. But I sense, Egberto, that the Democrats and progressives have the facts. We have the history. We have this kind. We have the information available.
Yes, I'm sorry.
But that's okay. We're totally unable to get down and systematically present it to the people and say, do you realize there's consequences to repatriating money? Do you remember we did this once before? There's not an effective organization nor communications mechanism within the left political parties.
Right. Well, also we have to realize that the plutocracy, the corporatocracy, has the media that helps them promote. I mean, it's not only Fox News that promote those positions. If you listen to ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, they're all going to be taught now that McConnell threw out the repatriation of dollars from corporations. Watch how that's going to hit every single network news now, and they're going to try to give that some sort of a credence. And then they will mention that it was tried before, and in short term, they will probably say, and we don't know how effective it was then, but the message is going to be that a method that we can have to have agreement between the president and McConnell right now is the repatriation of monies from overseas. The corporation's money is overseas. Watch how that narrative is going to go pretty soon, as given that he brought those up. And McConnell knows exactly what he was doing. He started to seed the media so that now becomes a talking point, so that to pressure the president into seriously considering that option.
Well, and we should point out that that the money that is offshore, the truth of the matter is that money is in play right now, because the offshore money is used to collateralize low-interest loans used by U.S. corporations. And so it's in play, the money's in play, nothing's being held up. But if the money could come into the United States, what could happen then is that it could be distributed to shareholders or used for further consolidation or used for foreign investment directly without being taxed. So,
you know what they normally do with it as well, Tim? They normally buy back stock. So what that does is it creates a higher price stock, which means when the person sells that stock, the appreciation is not taxed as real as income. It is taxed as a capital gain. So it's another way of gaming the system to allow people to extract more out of the corporation on a reduced tax basis, if you will. It is shameful, actually.
Well, I look at this, Egberto, and there's this issue, which if it can be consistently explained, and truthfully, I do not think it's going to be explained by Democrats because, as we said earlier, they're campaigning to the money rather than to the people. But, you put together a quick list of things, some that you've mentioned, like trade policy fairness, not the false promises of exports for jobs, 90% of Americans agree with that. Food labeling, 90% of Americans are for that. Banking reform, 90% of Americans want Glass-Steagall coming back. Tax reform, is there an American who does not believe in tax reform? Minimum wage increase. Americans want it so bad that the opposition isn't even fighting it anymore. Infrastructure investment, 90% of Americans want it. Money out of politics, it's another issue. 90% of Americans want that. I mean, it's ridiculous that we cannot capitalize on these issues and build a platform. I mean,
right.
What's so hard about that except for the fact that it does not appeal to the 1/10 of 1%?
Right, you're exactly right. The problem again is, and this goes for both parties now, and that both parties are beholden, and because they're beholden, we do not get policies that first look out for the middle class. The middle class is an afterthought. If the policy helps the middle class, great, we're happy for it. But that is not its initial intent. The initial intent is to help those that make up the American plutocracy. The results is okay. I mean, it's just trickle-down theory, right? In other words, we make those guys, we take care of the guys at the top, and, Elizabeth Warren says it all the time. You take care of the guys at the top. Their theory is that it trickles down. Unfortunately, we have over 30 years of data to prove that it's a fallacy, and that Democrats, if Democrats really were in for the middle class, it would be something that they would be hammering in a manner, and not by showing charts. Americans don't like to see charts and all those kinds of things, but they could put it in meat and potatoes form. They could remind Americans that there was a time in America when only daddy had to work or only mommy had to work, and that they had the same standard of living. Those are the things that people can feel. They can remind Americans that the reason we have latchkey kids is that both people have to work at odd times, and there's no and absent if we had policies that actually supported the family, we wouldn't have latchkey kids. So I haven't mentioned any numbers there, something that freaks people out. I haven't said any charts there, something that freaks people out. I've made that a message that latchkey mother can understand. That mother that when she comes home with her sore feet, not knowing what her kid did. That mother who cannot control her kid because she's never around when that kid is out in the supermarket stealing because he has all this time on his hands without any supervision. We can, as Democrats, we can provide a family-based messaging for the policies that we know is best for the middle class. We just don't do it. And I think we just don't do it because it means we don't really want the policies proper. We really don't want the policies that would really give you Denmark in America.
Well, it's 100% correct, and as Obama said, I'm not moping around about it. He's actually energized, and Egberto,
right.
I know that you and I are energized on this issue, but Egberto, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, and that is because I think it's important that we change the narrative about left and right, as if it's one extreme or the other. I prefer to think of it in terms of a circle, where at the top of the circle is freedom and at the bottom is fascism. And so fascism from the left or fascism from the right, it doesn't matter. It's still fascism. And freedom can be something that can be in the political sphere, can be attained by the left and attained by the right, such as NSA spying. What a wonderful coalition of Tea Partiers working together with real populists to say something is wrong here. And I'm not talking about the Dianne Feinsteins, of course, but it's a circle. We can work with anybody on this political circle, and we must aspire to get to the top of this circle and not to the bottom. So if you'll respect that, then...
Tim, no disagreement. Let me tell you, there's one thing that I would not disagree with. anybody on. It does. My graphics or the way I play certain things or the way I say certain things, I don't have a fixed stick to it. In other words, the only thing that matters to me, and I think should matter to us all, is the ultimate goal, which is middle-class centric policies that help us all. And however it is interpreted, if you have a better interpretation, I'll steal that interpretation from you, and I would start using it. Because for me, it's not about that. It is about moving the country forward. It's about moving. You understand what I'm trying to say.
I do, and no need to steal. It's given. But so now let's start, as Americans, we got to continue to fight for our voting rights. Unfortunately, we need uniform voting procedures. We need auditable voting machines. And when 2020 comes around, we're going to have to pay attention to how our districts are competitive again. And we got work ahead of us. Egberto, I'm hoping we can get you on many more times, and because there's much to do. And truthfully, it's an honor to work with you.
It's an honor to work with you, sir. It's a pleasure being on your show, Tim.
All right, thank you. Egberto Willies at EgbertoWillies.com. And again, we have a permanent link to his website on Danahey.com. And thank you for listening. The Tim Danahey Show at Danahey.com is where you go when you want to listen to investigative and thoughtful discussion, when you want to understand the issues without the agendas. We discuss government, but not politics, world affairs, economics, social issues, justice, many topics. And every Friday we have fun and talk about global authors and their new books. And the subjects range beyond simple description. Come listen and download at Danahey.com. Be one of the listeners who value honest discussion you won't hear anywhere else. Danahey.com.